The domain name industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry. For every country in the world, there is a particular body responsible for regulating how domains are sold and purchased within that particular country. In the case of Nigeria, it is NIRA. NIRA is the Nigeria Internet Registration Association, which is responsible for that regulation. My guest today is the president of NIRA, Reverend Sunday Folaya, who is also the president of another body, and I'll get him to explain more about that. Welcome to Tech Trends.
Thank you, Fred.
So on the internet, I saw that you chair the Afrinic body as well. What is that all about?
Afrinic is the African Network Information Center. It's the body responsible for managing IP addresses on the regional scale, Africa. The whole internet space deals with three things when you talk about managing it. There is the names, www whatever, which is regulated either globally or nationally. So we're fortunate that the string.ng, things that end with the string.ng, is managed within Nigeria by NIRA. All other ones like .com, .net, and the new generic top-level domains are managed outside the shores of Nigeria. Names are for us humans to remember, just like on your address book you store somebody by name, but actually what you do when you dial is to call a number. So also computers communicate using set of numbers. Those numbers are called IP addresses. And those IP addresses are issued on a continental scale. So for internet service providers to get IP addresses to use in Africa, they deal with an African body called Afrinic, which is responsible for managing and issuing those IP addresses on the continental scale. So I'm also fortunate to chair that body in Africa.
Before we talk more about the .ng string, let's look at the domain name industry worldwide. How big is this industry?
Well, Fred, I would reckon, and it's subject to argument, using ballpark figures, that it's worth between close to $750 billion and $1 trillion.
That's a lot of money.
Quite a lot. Right now, globally, there are over 138 to 140 million domains already registered. Out of these, between about 100 to 110 million domains are actually .com domains, which were the initial set of registrations, especially for businesses.
And who's responsible for .com?
Well, the .com is managed by ICANN, the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers, which then exercises its functions through very many subsidiary agencies. For example, ICANN is the one that delegated .ng to Nigeria through Nigerian Information Technology Development
So it's not owned by Nigeria technically?
Well, it is, you know, being a global standard, like the ISO standard, you can't claim ownership. We have what is called the right of use. Because, I mean, ng is a string, we can't claim to have invented the letters ng. So yes, what we have is a right of use. As a nation, no other nation can go for that same use. But you see, these strings are not just allocated arbitrarily. There are some rules. They follow the two-letter ISO standard. And that's why you see that.
And what are these?
Yeah, the ISO standard guides the issue of these numbers based on country names. It's interesting to know, for example, that Saudi Arabia is SA and South Africa is not SA, it's ZA. So it's the ISO standard that allows the resolution of those conflicts globally.
Okay, let's look at why do you think people still prefer to use .com today?
It's a mentality thing, you know, because the internet started from the US, people registered .coms when there were no .ngs. So obviously when you talk about domain name, people think first of .com. I mean, I know people today who still, when they want to say toothpaste, they say Maclean's, because Maclean's is the first toothpaste they ever used. But of course, I mean, yeah, that it's the first does not mean it's still in vogue. So yes, .com was the precursors, the first set of domains to be registered. They still have the numbers. There are equally more important strings now that have come up, like .ng, which every Nigerian should make sure they have.
Yeah, so that's what I'm going to ask you. Why should I use .ng?
A couple of reasons. Number one, for competing global names, the .ng is cheaper. That's the first thing. The second is that when you are searching for your business, the fact that the name ends with .ng, you get a better rank on search engines than names that don't have .ng. I'll give you an example. If I register a domain name called travel.com, and I register another domain name called travel.com.ng, and you now go to Google and you say travel agencies in Nigeria, consistently, travel.com.ng would come first in your search than travel.com, even if they are competing. So by registering the string .ng, you're already positioning yourself in the eye of the search engine as a name to be found first. So there is that early to market because of the type of name you are using.
How can an average youth who is watching this program now make money from the domain ecosystem?
I'm happy you mentioned the word ecosystem, because that's what we are trying to create so that it can flourish. Ecosystem in the sense that what NIRA is the registry. NIRA is a body that regulates all the activities by bringing the stakeholders together. So distinctly, there is a registry which contains all those names and the associated lookups and the technical razzmatazz, if I can borrow your language, for managing it. To that registry, we have registrars who are actually in the business of selling the names. So the registrars are the ones that run the platform which talks to the registry. So the average Nigerian does not need to know where the registry is or how the registry works. The average Nigerian just needs to talk to their registrars. And the registrars now have the tools and the means of talking to the registry. So NIRA has about 50 competing registrars who are licensed in the ecosystem to engage in the business of selling these names. And on top of that, each registrar again has the liberty to appoint resellers. So on an average, you might see registrars having between 5 and 10 resellers. And then these are the resellers that then have the foot soldiers that go out to actually do the canvassing and registration.
So how many levels do we have of domain strings in Nigeria?
Okay, right now, Fred, we have 3 levels. But because the .ng is the first level, we don't call it the 0 level, we call it the first level. So we have the first level, which is .ng. You have second level, so if you register Fred.ng, that is on the second level. And you can then have something on the third level. For example, you can have interview.com.ng. That's on the third level. We also have some names available on the fourth level, especially names for state governments, for example. We do it on the fourth level. So maybe Ministry of Transport in Lagos would be transport.la for Lagos.gov.ng.
If I buy a domain, say there's a domain called fred.com, and I buy the equivalent in Nigeria, fred.com.ng or fred.ng, who lays claim? Can somebody abroad lay claim to that particular domain in Nigeria?
Now, this is where it gets interesting, Fred. First of all, if you are a business, you are registered in Nigeria. For example, you've registered a business, maybe Continental Brewers Nigeria Limited, okay, and you want cbrn.com.ng. Why not? That is your business. You should get that name. If somebody wants that name from America, they have to first come and register in Nigeria as a company, and it's first come, first serve. But if they are registered in America and they have a trademark for that name, obviously you cannot lay claim to it. So for example,
when you say trademark, is it a global trademark?
Sure, a global trademark. You cannot register Peter Egbeshola Shoes Petroleum Industry, Pepsi, and say you want to register Pepsi.ng. Anybody knows that you are about to play games. There's a global brand that has the trademark Pepsi. So in as much as it's not someone else's trademark, you can register it and you have the first right of use. Now there are some very interesting scenarios which I find very, very interesting. We have some things that are unique to us. For example, somebody who bears the name Ola, who registers ola.name.ng. And then someone calls from Spain and says, Hola, I've trademarked Hola, therefore I want Ola. Obviously, we're in Nigeria, man. Ola takes more precedence in Nigeria than Ola in Spanish. So in terms of managing it as NIRA, we will clearly tell the Ola that you do not have a claim to this name. So yeah, there are rules. Some are very complex, some are very, very reasonable and straightforward, but it is meant to promote the industry within Nigeria.
Thank you for coming on Tech Trends today.
Thank you, Fred. It's a pleasure being with you.
This is where we end today's edition of the show, but the conversation continues online. Yes, a lot is happening online, so start following us now. And remember, you can watch the entire show on the Channels TV YouTube page or via my blog. I remain yours truly, Chukwemeka Agbata. Bye.